Just going to give everyone a chance to settle, find your seat. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Welcome, bienvenue à la dernière soirée de poésie aujourd'hui, de dimanche quand même. C'est avec grand plaisir que je vais présenter ici pour ces trois poètes ce soir. It is with great pleasure that I get to present these three poets tonight at the last event of Sunday evening. My name is Christine McNair. I will be very brief during my time up here because I know we all want to hear these three readers read. And I'm just going to be reading the bios as presented by each author. So just for context when I'm reading. So thank you very much. So first off, I'm happy to welcome Kasper Bartczak, a Polish poet, literary scholar, translator, and professor of American literature at the University of Łódź, where he heads the Department of North American Literature and Culture. He has published numerous scholarly books and articles on figures such as Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, Wallace Stevens, John Ashbery, Ray Armantrout, and Peter Gizzi. He is the author of In Search of Communication and Community, the Poetry of John Ashbery, and a collection of essays in Polish, Świat Nieszkolony, The Unintegrated World, for which he received the annual award of the magazine Literatura na Świecie. His latest collection of literary essays is called Materia I Autokreacja. As a poet, he is the author of several collections, two of which have been finalists in major Polish literary awards. As a poetry translator, he has translated volumes of selected poems by Ray Armantrout. Oh, I did that line already. In 2025, he received the Silius Literary Award for Lifetime Achievement. He lives and works in Łódź, Poland. Welcome, Kasper.
Hello, thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to come. Thank you for, I'm here because Rob McLennan published this chapbook of a selection of my poems. The chapbook is called Unsovereign. It's been translated by a friend of mine, an American poet, and a colleague at work, Mark Tardy. And I'm going to read a number of poems from the chapbook. If I have time, I may read perhaps later. We'll see if I have time for this, two poems that I have written more recently. It's a curious experience to return to one's own work in translation. Translating literature and translating poetry especially is an amazing feat. I know languages are translatable, of course, but poetry, as you all know, is a very specific kind of language. There is a kind of strange divide, a membrane between the two languages and any two languages, and that membrane, that divide, that barrier becomes more pronounced when you go from between poems written in two languages. So these poems are my poems, but they are also my translator's poems. Mark Tardy is a friend who is from Chicago, and for quite a few years now, he has lived in Poland, where he teaches American literature. He has wife and kids living near Łódź. He's a practicing poet too, which is important, I think, because he never lost contact with the American poetic scene and with the American language. He has so far translated a number of Polish poets and writers, not just myself, and has been very successfully placing our work throughout the palette of mostly American literary journals. Okay, so If I have time, as I said, I will read two more recent poems who have a different translator. The poems in this chapbook, uh, brought out by Rob McLennan last year or 2 years ago, called "And Sovereign," were written in the time when Poland was 2015, 2016, 2017. I think there was something happening in Polish politics. Something, I would say simply, I'm looking for a good word, disquieting maybe. So I think it's reflected somewhere in the background of these poems. You will see for yourself maybe what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Phosphorus. You are in the terrarium, a black box thing, in itself an alluvium, enriched feedstock, breath smoother than phosphate, ammoniac sinter, the synthetic maniac given under the tongue for thought, life glued into someone's dream, edible, clean, reroute the reverie, make dirty or alloy, read the body close to you, pulsar, errarium, a plural thing in itself, unsovereign. The truth of the picture. The woman across from me is reading the greatest prophecies, the new Middle Ages. I am reading the black letters on the white leather of her bag. Wszystko fajnie, ale gówno się dzieje, meaning everything's fine, but shit happens. True, but a lot happens because the banana's shaking on the stalk while the strawberry is juicy and cool, meaning everything's fine because there is no arguing, but there is the enlightenment of conjunctions. So this next poem is called Dreams. It's a list of dreams which actually I never had. I just sort of dreamed of having those dreams. You will hear a bunch of names here. Like most of these names are, it's a mixture of American and Polish poets. They were simply occupying my mind at the time. There is the political situation in the background somewhere there. The Polish names, there is a name of a poet whose name was Rymkiewicz. He was the first Polish translator of Wallace Stevens. I think it's important. The other Polish names are of poets in the 1990s, 2000s who were responsible for bringing a lot of good American poetry into Poland. You'll also hear the names of two philosophers, Jürgen here. Jürgen is for Jürgen Habermas, a German philosopher who said that the Enlightenment is an unfinished project. And he also argued that we should translate within one nation between those who believe in God and those who don't believe in God. And there is also Ludwig, and this is Ludwig Wittgenstein. Okay, a lot of names, but here it goes. Dreams. A dream in which a gene, a dream in which genes infiltrate a military parade, a dream in which city bikes meet under a slope, a dream in which a loss of the ability not to dream, a dream in which a dream is a germ of sorrow that almost explains, a dream in which another ski slope in the middle of Warsaw, a dream in which Wallace Stevens tells me at somebody's funeral to read Stevens and then says, I was first translated into Polish by Rymkiewicz. A dream in which John Ashbery says at a party, don't read Stevens, but read the boilerplates on engines instead. A dream in which there was some enlightenment after all. A dream in which an email from Jürgen, finish this project, you have 2 more years. A dream in which I borrow a notebook for dreams from two women on Facebook and it does me some good. A dream in which the funeral is mine, but I'd already seen it. A dream in which Bogdan Zadura dreamed about me in a train station luggage locker, but it was someone else's dream. A dream in which Derek Fox says, Frank O'Hara's just been ordained a priest. A dream in which a right-wing friend says, don't kill me with your laughter. A dream in which a left-wing friend says, thou art the alpha, omega, watch a tin can at a train station. A dream in which my looks kill a neighbor. I no longer have any doubts, scrape something off my skin. A dream in which an email to Jürgen, please write something about translating religion. A dream in which an email from Ludwig, I am beyond the boundary of the poem. I am out of the game, silent, sans visa, and I am not coming back. The border is closed. A dream in which I only read fluently in German. A dream in which speech acts, alien, innumerable, and in them hope. Right. So maybe the title poem, it's called Unsovereign. Unsovereign. The hearty letter, the more than hearty organism of love, sending of itself over soaped tooth, over ocular sand, something more than trembling terrazzo, better than mold entangled beyond the limes of granite, juicier than dung from a snail or hedgehog, firmer than a dream of fungal recurrence. That poem about eyelids, feet, wrapped warmly, or that one about the pulp plexus, as if I understood thought wiped from grimy nothingness without a poem, flayed, pasted onto membranes, as if I were able to forget you, the mucous membranes that dreamed of me, as if I could, without a poem, always go between the air of nothing and the air abraded with skin, the elastic pleasure entangled between people, all in ammonia membranes, words shaken to the core, in the organism, its artificial sound pulped into tenderness, as escaping, if not profitably, cordially, endearingly, without a vanishing point. Okay, this one is called Poem for the Body Politic. A lot of skin colored by a tearaway tattoo, strings singing hair between the fingers in the mouth, veins in muscles alive, in literate thoughts, in the shared gravity when you run towards someone. I convert the body document bonded sympathetically, the poem an open conjunction, the sinews splayed into a poem beyond systemic, into a bodily system, singing a rational anthem. In the poem, a rational body echoed by the populace. Thank you. Thank you. I was told Canadians are extremely polite, and it's true. Thank you. Please continue doing that. It's very nice. Um, I know these poems are strange. You know, what can you do? What can you do? Um, so this next poem is called "Rose Alluded in a Verse." A rose is this common motif reappearing in a lot of classical poetry. There's this argument that, you know, the classicist argument that the objects of art last beyond time, and one such object was a rose, both in Polish and Anglophone poetry. Various poets throughout the ages, it's like they sort of, relate this rose one to another over the ages. And I also thought, writing this poem, that a rose as this sort of object, beautiful, um, trans-historical object, wants to dominate us. So this poem kind of rebels against this rose. Well, let's see. Rose alluded in a verse. We see you, hear you every day. The machinery of park tariffs, franchised altars speak to us. If you fed us with singing, we'd ask what keys the melody. The antidote for the time we are running out of. We feel the mass, appreciate the core, yet our immunologies tremble within us. Let us be like an incombustible gas, or in an uncalculated world, out of body antibodies. We are exhausted by reaction paths. Recitation doesn't satiate us, doesn't burn nor give the field, doesn't turn food into work. Unless you emerge in the process, you pass the scope of the word. You're like a rose that led us unto an illusion. Here's my eco-poetic poem. It's called Sweet Memory of Summer, and it has an epigraph from Wallace Stevens. Other makings of the sun were waste and welter. Wallace Stevens, Planet on the Table. 1. The organism remembers the sweet taste of summer, remembers the heat, pumice, rusty bark, remembers the oily depths of a body of water. Above it loomed the smog of the horizon, the furnace of dancing particles. The organism understands itself in the depths and smog. 2. The organism remembers the enveloping smog, grateful for the oily complicity. It melts, tests the composition of the envelope, reckons with an empty carton in the line of the horizon, knows the barcode, one such furnace. 3. Will the organism absorb the carton, soak through it? Meanwhile, it gets a scan, learns the composition of the spectrum. Form, the heat between the lines looms a gleeful hollow shaving. The organism fuses the starch, chives, calcinate, keeps the box, goes into pure recitation of the band. 5. The bright panels of the horizon box are within reach. In full light, the organism enters a state of self-emission. 6. So they persist reconciled, recitation, emission, and scan. The organism's happy to have participated in the episode. What better than an enveloped emission? Other scans didn't pass into a state of recitation, melted into garbage. The organism leaves the depths, chip and chives. 7. What overactivity in the background of the vacuum, the cardboard horizon knows no end of emission. Empty depths pumice. What memory, what chives? Will the organism find itself in the background of the vacuum? The continuity of the horizon is released. And final poem from Unsovereign. Neophyte refined. The poem searches beyond, the poem that corrodes, doesn't code nor clap, algorithmically doesn't buy a billboard of bullshit, doesn't fund slush nor skis, doesn't intercede, digests through concrete and ice, says, capital is dead. I gleam over a dead billboard. I crush the neon sign into hoarfrost. Let gasoline run through me. over the ice. I bind that gas into a bundle. That's how I loved you. Hey, thank you. Thanks so much. It's very encouraging. Thank you. I've never been to Canada. I've never read anything publicly in Canada, and here I am. I'll finish. Thank you. It's very nice. Maybe I'll stay here. Okay. Uh, so okay, uh, two poems, not long ones, to close this. I recently put together a volume of my selected. It's my first selected ever. And once I was done, somebody pointed out to me, I never realized this before, that the first poem in that selected and the last poem, it's a 200-page book, first and last are about skiing. Really, a younger critic wrote about it and said, listen, it, it, believe it or not, there is some good skiing to be done in Europe, including Poland. I was taught skiing by my father. And over the years, I realized how important all of this was. And these are two poems that have a lot to do with my father. He became ill, and the first poem that I'm going to read now I wrote when he was still around, and then the next one a few years later when he was no longer around. Let me just read those poems. Through love, I enter my father's organism. One. I'm sorry, okay. So these are by a different translator. I need to acknowledge this. These are translated by a friend of mine who lives in California, Marit MacArthur. Through love, I enter my father's organism. One, the organism my father was everywhere distinguishes me from various interruptions. Various interruptions to my father's organism have access to me. I have access to the organism of my father, who didn't drink too much, went bankrupt till blackout, smoked bad cigarettes, listened to Hendrix, took me to the mountains. Two, instructions in snow, recitations of my father's organism in me, intimacy with gravitons on the downhill run dissipates into belief in nothing. Momentum, powder, planetary surging pride, some kind of I in this verse, the planet's mineral song in the trees lit up by snow. And so a few years later, I returned to the same theme, and here's this final poem. It's called On Skiing in the Wake of My Father's Death. Momentum, surging, pride, powder, a planetary joyride is all I wanted then. Now, when I in this want everything, stream of light, air, and snow, take in everything, dim, crystal, flash of blackbird, sifting through branches, shadow of bark, path through fresh powder, shiver running along the globe turning, a dance with breath I do without any practice, first verse in pure nature, let it be the song I breathe in, a smoke of time, yet in swooshing downhill there is no time. A string vibrates from the whole world, swooshing down a stream of light, whispers melodically. It offers ingrained spectrum. It holds, as I do now, you belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Casper. That was great. Merci Casper, c'est formidable. N'oublie pas qu'il y a les livres qu'on peut acheter après la récitation. Alors, n'oublie pas qu'ils sont ici à Perfect Books. Don't forget to buy books by the end of this reading here, so they're right over there. Pour notre deuxième poète ici, pour notre soirée de poésie, je suis très heureux de demander d'avoir ici notre deuxième poète, Alexandre Kirjot. Depuis l'Utoué, où il est établi, Alexandre Kirjot explore une poésie de survie. Alexandre.
Merci, thank you. Good evening. I'll give a brief introduction in English as best as I can, and then I'll move on to reading in French from my latest book, Metastasis, published last month by L'Interligne. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my editor, Chloe, who's somewhere over there, here. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for your confidence. So I'm just a guy who writes poems. I'm not a performer. So tonight I'm going to read my poems as I would read them to myself in my living room. My book is, in a way, a study of pain. I'm not looking for light. I don't care about resilience. I simply want to immerse myself in the pain itself. Thank you for listening. On en apprend plus sur la vie en écrivant là où il n'y en a plus. Vivre alors jusqu'à s'y rendre. Premier chapitre, l'oubli. Choisir l'oubli qui s'impose par lui-même, qui frôle la peau, qui rapproche les regards. Celui qui hante l'endos de la parole, qui veille au silence et qui délivre les cris. Pour vaincre les voix, déjouer les douleurs, pour aduler les excès. Parce qu'au-delà d'une certaine violence, la poésie prend feu sous l'effet de sa propre chaleur. Choisir l'oubli parce que la chair, elle, se souviendra et les cicatrices prendront enfin racine. Une vie de petits carnages quotidiens, de petites douleurs grandioses, de tendresse dévorante qui ampute les sens et de larmes, l'empreinte de nos adieux retrouvés. Une vie, justement. Il n'y a plus de réveil, mais un sommeil vaste comme un territoire. Que le silence au bout des doigts, un testament en braille, une détresse sans enchantement. Un écho de lumière à jamais suspendu, une offrande figée dans le sel, une cage, non, une sépulture. Cartographier les espaces, s'abandonner à la géographie du temps, une anémie des lieux, la trajectoire déviée du projectile. Des nuages en feu, un virus, quand tout sera détruit à la jonction entre la peau et le ciel, un horizon. Un voile de pétrole, un monument de cendres, autodafé du regard. Soleil calciné se déversant dans la mer de la tranquillité de l'âme, et même si l'acacia fleurira, ce sera dans un siècle inondé par le lait noir du ciel. Constellation d'astres morts, naine blanche comme coraux, une arme, une éclipse définitive, une chorale d'obscurité. Posséder tous les déluges que nous aurons mis au monde contre les parois de ta peau, et de cette solitude sans retour, inonder de fatigue nos chemins retrouvés. Soustrait de ses couleurs, le toit effondré de l'hiver se disperse en moi, un cortège funèbre qui affaise mes poumons. Ma langue se déracine et s'envole, un corbeau à la recherche de sa proie. Une rivière crevassée où l'ombre des oiseaux vient mourir, une fragrance de givre déposée sur chacun de mes cils, des icebergs incrustés sous mes paupières, ma Pléiade. Une neige blanche de fumée, un phare en flammes, la nuit ralentit ses battements, la glace même ralentit ses mouvements. M'immoler par le froid, me disperser et redevenir la suie du ciel qui me ramènera à ton île chaude comme le sang, un grand brûlé de ton absence. Nous sommes multitudes de tous les enfants que nous hébergeons dans la sève de nos langues, taillées par la lumière. Le bruissement des pots de verre sous les draps, forer nos corps, pleurer le sucre du dernier fruit sur la lame de tes lèvres, une messe païenne s'érige dans la nef de tes mains, joindre nos paumes, un nid dévasté, les continents se déchirent, une amputation infligée, s'unir au centre du pardon, le temps absout les métastases du temps. Des éclairs à envahir, des splendeurs d'ossements. Ma mémoire est un squelette en fleurs, un jardin de tessons. Offrez-moi vos désolations, un bouquet d'ambulances fanées. Confondre la vérité dans l'épicentre du miroir. La lame s'insère-t-elle en moi ou en ressort-elle? Être seul de toutes les morts à porter, une douleur que la douleur elle-même ne peut résoudre. Un territoire, une mémoire collective en voie d'extinction. Lentement, le corps se sédimente, l'âme s'érode pour adopter la posture de l'oubli et périr en elle. Accueillir les cernes des sacrifiés, ma peau un fruit interdit pelé par le soleil, hommage aux louves affamées en procession dans mes veines. Appartenir à un lieu où l'humain est un animal en détention dans une anatomie détruite, un voyage sans départ autre que l'échec du retour. Donnez-moi tout ce que j'ai perdu. Donnez-moi un nom à soustraire du temps. À l'aveuglement, seul mon regard peut prétendre. Inciser nos rétines, une sortie de secours. Iris en spasme de toi. S'insérer entre la paume et l'œil pour concentrer la lumière. Être le prisme et le rayon. Des couleurs immenses remplissent le spectre du vide. Des centaines d'images en noir et blanc. Explorer l'absence de couleurs et ses contrastes. Des centaines d'images et finalement un seul mot attentat. J'abandonne les saisons, exode, devenir un corps étranger, une greffe de soi, esthétique de l'effondrement. Merci, je vais passer au dernier chapitre sur le corps. Corps à corps pour attiser la flamme et brûler les maisons, n'habiter qu'un amas de débris solaires. Une journée lente comme une salle d'attente. S'il existe une heure, elle est en fuite. La lumière nous frôle, annonçant des retrouvailles incertaines. Un tatouage aussi éphémère que l'inverse de la souffrance. Des solitudes centenaires s'agrippent au soleil ivre de nos veines. Une mélodie lourde se dépose en frisson sur nos lèvres. Une chorégraphie chuchotée comme une eulogie. Des mouvements silencieux caressent le sol, un miroir s'ouvre sur la beauté. Nous ne voyons pas le sommet de l'obscénité parce que nous y sommes. Fondre les cloches pour recouvrir nos corps, tel un Pompéi de bronze, rassemblés à jamais dans des absences avortées. Une frontière entre les souvenirs et les organes, une cicatrice comme un assaut entre l'absence et le présent. La peau imprégnée de fougères se laisser tomber dans le vent. Par la fenêtre, tes lèvres s'envolent comme des nuages de chlorophylle. Entre nos lèvres, un supplice à bout de souffle. Entre nos trahisons, une nuit bleue comme un fruit endormi. Entre nous, le dernier étage de l'espoir. Percer la peau pour faire naître l'atoll au creux d'un corps déconstruit. L'effondrement total d'un volcan sous l'eau. L'enfance. Se fondre au cuir de la rue. Une nouvelle peau lente comme le jour séparée de ses mouvements. Une ville en hémorragie. À genoux, des heures se transforment en prières. Les sons fusionnent en ton centre. Cathédrale de lumière, tu portes le soleil telle une nuit son âge. Capitale de la douceur. Fermer les yeux et voir tous ceux qui m'ont abandonné. Ouvrir les yeux et ne voir que l'abandon. Sous mes paupières, mes yeux ne se ferment plus. Le sommet de nos vies s'inverse, mécanique des fluides vandalisés. S'effondrer en soi, surpris par la fragilité de nos îles intérieures. La lumière se défenestre des pupilles, mes yeux se dissoudre. Enfoncer mes doigts jusqu'aux racines de la violence, profaner nos cils que j'arrache un à un. Le contour des yeux se révèle enfin. Une vie ou l'instant d'un clignement de paupières nues. L'appel des corps, nos incendies. Recueillir les cendres comme les déploie le vent. Déchirer les jours pour arriver plus tôt dans la nuit que l'incandescence seule de nos mouvements illuminera. Nous sommes un manifeste de corps drapés de pardon en papier et de catastrophes à bâtir. Nous sommes le siècle des lumières qui émergent de l'intime. L'appel des corps, un parfum. Saint-Suaire de la canicule de toi. Entre tes omoplates, un cratère où plongent les oiseaux kamikazes, immobiles dans leur chute. Nos doigts, des cris transperçant les murs. La nuit franchit l'encre de nos espaces, le ciel se résorbe. La teinte d'un volcan en peine, un jardin d'orage, celui de nos violences. L'appel des corps, une incantation. La folie s'installe dans les failles de ta voix, des sédiments abandonnés au port de ma peau. Extuber le silence, les notes de nos soupirs, un pays en nous-mêmes, tombeau à ciel ouvert, une cage thoracique. Le lent mouvement de nos instincts, notre unique possession se porte en soi. Habiter un âge où la distance se mesure en murmures. Habiter les nuits jusqu'à ce que l'espace devienne un geste, puis enfin s'allonger sur le plancher de ton ombre en fleurs. Et sans jamais complètement disparaître de l'empreinte du temps, l'appel des corps épousera la forme de nos insomnies, une blessure visible de l'intérieur. Une forme dénaturée, les lettres s'estompent dans une fuite de la matière libre, des mosaïques infimes de mots blancs écrits au couteau, tout laissé sur la page jusqu'au graphite des ongles pour que ne subsiste que le relief, unique repère d'un poème territoire. De vos doigts déposés sur les larmes des fleurs jusqu'au sommeil sculpté de vagues blanches, de vos danses dessinant le portrait du feu sur le linceul de la fenêtre, jusqu'à votre peau contre la mienne, des parfums d'éternité. Rien n'a changé. L'histoire se déploie dans la lente ondulation de nos heures, jusqu'à devenir notre foyer primitif, la somme des corps, notre maison. Merci. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Alexandre. C'était vraiment, je veux beaucoup lire votre livre. Just an announcement that there will be a couple little last-minute announcements at the end of the show, so please don't go away. But for the moment, I'm very happy to announce our last reader and introduce her. Karen Sully was born in Moose Jaw and grew up in rural southwest Saskatchewan. She's the author of 6 collections of poetry. Her most recent, Wellwater, won the Forward Prize for Best Collection, the Governor General's Award for Poetry, recently won the T.S. Eliot Prize, and was shortlisted for the Penn Heaney Prize. She teaches half-time for the University of St. Andrews in Scotland and is this year's Shaftesbury's Creative Writer in Residence for Victoria College at the University of Toronto. Welcome, Karen.
Thanks so much. It's lovely to be reading at Versefest again. Thank you, Rob, for inviting me, and thank you, Allison, and thank you to everyone involved in the planning, and thanks as well to the volunteers without whom the events wouldn't happen. So thanks very much. So I'm going to read 5 poems from Wellwater. It's funny because a friend of mine who's a poet said that he always, tells the audience how many poems are going to be read so that the audience knows that this will soon be over. The book is among the other aspects of it, it looks back to where I'm from in Saskatchewan, and there are some poems that think about some of the seeds that were planted then that have since borne fruit ecologically, as well as in other ways. I'll start with a poem that I think of as my Gen X poem. One of the aspects of looking back is to realize how often, for better or for worse, we were left to our own devices. The poem is set in Toronto, though. Initially, it was written from the house of a friend I was house sitting for, across from Riverdale Park. So it's called The Trees in Riverdale Park. Diagonal paths quadrisect a square acre, white as the page in February. In the soil of this basic geometry, ash, elm, and maple thrive like understandings whose bare logics are visible, understandings the theorem has allowed. Between Rome bodies of the sensible world, people, dogs, all those lovers of the material and immaterial illumined as under working hypotheses by sodium bulbs whose costly inefficiencies Los Angeles and Philadelphia have apparently moved on from. The trees are grand hotels closed for the season. But below ground, social life is taking place. As when snow lay on the fields and people descended to rec rooms, secret bars, like the snake pit in the basement of the curling rink in Golden Prairie. Our big Ford nosing the siding, we waited for our parents with the engine running, under grave instruction, as radio sent our autonomy bounding toward us. Chilling scenarios inspired by the trucking forecast and news items from Great Falls or Bismarck freely imagined. Songs that gave us bad ideas and the seeds of a mythology. 10 minutes, then 1 hour, 2. Pop and chips and the gift of the periphery. I've never understood what starlit means. On a clear night in their millions, they cast no discernible light into the dark expanse where a farmhouse sat, sleepless in its chair, and grid roads and bullshit Caragana disappeared. Where the animals' lives played out, smells traveling slowly, low to the ground. In Riverdale Park, the diagonal walks, like diagrams, may be said to describe themselves, which is a relief. Now snow is blowing through the theorem that the understandings broadly accommodate and sensible bodies adjust their collars to. Bare spots left by departed cars demonstrating how the outlines of loss might gradually alter as experience is filled in by its representation, even if not made peace with. One thing that happened in the course of writing the book is a thing that doesn't really happen to me. I was, I don't know, staring blankly at the wall, and suddenly a relative who I hadn't thought of for many years, who passed away many years ago, and with whom I was not particularly close, suddenly just kind of appeared to me or announced her presence. And a few poems in the book sort of think through that person. And this is one of them. There are also some poems in the book that think through some of the stories that we're told throughout our lives that we spend our whole lives trying to discern the significance of. And this one is called, this poem is called Dust, and it uses a terrifying fairy tale that I was told as a kid called The Sandman. Dust. Returning home from evening mass in the big car, they were like canal boats then, sliding through the loose gravel. In the back seat, she pushed my cuticles up with a silver file, not unpainfully. To expose the half moons, she said, God put them there. He likes to see them. An empty bottle rolled under the passenger seat and back out again as my grandfather drove, one foot on the gas, one on the brake. It was a clear glass bottle with white lettering, and a sense of the conditional crept in through the vents like dust, the incense of the road, scrubbing the air of clarity, of all else but the demands of dust. What you need replaced with what you don't. You are ignored by everything as you struggle with it. I was an empty bottle on the floor of a church filling with dust, a flame of dust on the horizon, like the one to which the Sandman gestures when he says to the sleepy child at the window, look, there rides my twin. If, pure of heart, you've done this day all you might have, by one of us will you dream of beauty. And if you have offended through any of the 1,000 ways to offend, by the other you will wake from dreams of fear. But as St. Matthew has advised, do not be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for today is its own trouble. Although we can't really say that anymore, can we? No matter, because here my brother has arrived, shaking time's dust out of his clothes, and isn't he handsome? Checking his phone, its screen like the moon in the eye of his horse. Thanks. So this is another one of those poems that tries to think its way through a story, again, that I was told many times as a child, but that I still don't necessarily know the meaning of. It's called Horseshoe. Seriously, in all that time, I asked, did your faith never waver? How unprepared you are for these moments, she said, even as it might seem your whole life has been preparing you. And though inclined to reticence while alive, preferring that events speak for themselves, she told me a story. We were gathered, she said, at a long table beside the lilac trees, the family, and my brother out of hospital. After supper had finished, he recalled how his former music teacher, a brilliant pianist but a cruel man, had died, if you can believe it, when a horseshoe nailed above his door fell on his head as he crossed the threshold. Despite my brother's talent, she said, his teacher told him repeatedly that a person of his emotional delicacy would never go anywhere. And, in fact, he didn't. The horseshoe had once belonged to what many local people considered the municipality's luckiest horse, who was rescued after falling through river ice and had escaped miraculously unharmed when lightning struck a tree it was tied to. When later its cries warned the farmer the barn where it was stabled had caught fire, he swore the horse need never work again. I myself recall this horse, she said, a sturdy little strawberry roan, renowned also for its gentleness. It lived to a very old age and died in the meadow it was born in. My brother's teacher was given its shoe before traveling to the city for a piano competition, which he won. The reason why we presumed why he never again competed. But I know all this, I said. I heard it. I was there. A red and white checked oilcloth was attached with clothespins to the table. I wore a new sundress I hated and complained of. Afterward, Uncle laughed and said that none of it was true. But you weren't there, she said to me in my dream. Not if I don't remember you. Thanks. So in honor of the winter that seemed to never end, I'll read a poem called The Snowplow. I've spent a fair bit of time in St. John's, Newfoundland over the last number of years, and this poem was written there. Snowplow. The forecast calls for the same ground covered. In what looks equally like a show of optimism and of wry futility, the plow clears the mall's empty lot in a storm. Snow, freezing rain, and fog, all the measures water takes to avoid certainty are being taken. The plow is a child of the North, like romanticism. And what a dad rock moment here on the sidewalk, watching the blade at its superb angle push everything before it. Old snow with the new, garbage and beer cans blown from the bus stop, stray carts that will emerge from graying banks in the melt awkwardly, like facts undigested by argument. Standing at a distance with its hands in its pockets, gradually relinquishing its attachment to retail, the mall is autonomous as a mind free from care. Its failures don't bother it. The moon has shut itself for so long in the attic above the low ceiling, I've forgotten what phase it's in. Street lamps stare from their front steps into the night. The plow carries away what falls again behind, and this appears peaceful. Sluggish oil, heated now, runs loosely inside it. Caution lights illuminate a mist of snow, crystalline and spiritualized, and if the shadowy operator sees me, he does so from outside my idea of him. It is the opposite of the intimacy of a winter interior where a broken understanding lies quietly on its side. That the plow is here doesn't mean the worst is over. I can't speak for the shadowy operator, but I know he feels the machinery's vibrations through his boot soles, in his hands around the wheel and the controller, and in his arms, that it activates an expertise he barely needs to think about. The engine noise is shoved around by the icy gale. Sometimes it weakens, but it finds me, as through a crowd going the opposite way. Thank you so much. I'm going to end with one of the poems in the book that, about 3/4 of the way through writing the book, my dad died. And so there are poems written in the aftermath of his death, but also poems that were written prior that read very differently to me now. And this is one of them. I don't know how many of you have had the the real experience of the West Edmonton Mall. It's a trip, but it was a big deal when I was a kid. This is called Holiday at the Wave Pool. Warmish, oft bathed in. Pride of the second most visited and largest mall by gross leasable area on the northern subcontinent. Was it not in a childhood when travel meant Edmonton, astonishing, a wonder of the world? And on the other side of the intervening years during which acknowledgement was sought, sometimes deserved, and occasionally won, when individuality hardened the heart and mysteries into problems, is it not a respite from the buses in March, from all the falling, and soothing to the shoulders and the knees? Stroll without your heavy coat along the ice-free corporate boulevards out of the wind, road salt, the violently arbitrary real, and get your steps in. You in the light of your living. You one-off among the Wings repeating franchises. We of the just looking, thanks. Can we dance inside a little to the serviceable pop? Cry when it's sad in front of everybody? This humor called sorrow is inevitable as the food courts devoted to each stage of life and corresponding institution. A water feature beneath potted trees who've unfocused their eyes forever is a place to enjoy without buying, like nature. Pretty decent. It could be worse. With mom and newborn brother in hospital, we left our square of lawn tied to the clothes horse, shivering in back of the duplex, and went every night to McDonald's. My dad, little sister, and me. Him not knowing what else to do with us. And my God, it was glorious. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Karen. Thanks so much, Alexandre. Merci beaucoup, Alexandre. Merci, Karen. Merci, Casper. Thank you, Casper. It's been a wonderful evening. Before you retire, please welcome McLennan to talk about various things and thank various people. He exists over here. Okay, il est ici.
Thank you, wife, Christine. She patted my face, like I can call it, yeah. This has been a wonderful week. Thank you for being part of it. This event, 16 years, which is very cool, has been organized and run by a team. Francis Boyle, Alison Armstrong, they've done an enormous amount of work. Chloe and Bennett and Jeffrey and Brian and Conyer, who's wonderful. Yes, it's a clap for Conyer. I'm just going to keep saying names until people clap. Is that how that works? Oh, we'll clap for them, which is very nice. I will mention that this is the final night, but we have a bonus tomorrow, which I'm looking up on my phone because I don't remember the details. Karen Soley is doing a reading and Q&A tomorrow at Carleton University. It is 2:30 to 4 p.m., Dutton Tower 2017. It is free. You should go to that. That'll be fun. Although carpool or take the bus, like parking is just a nightmare, Carlton. For God's sakes, like most of you know that. Or the train. Take the train. Well, the train is still public transit. I'm supposed to mention also that we are doing a patron program. It's basically give us a lot of money and then we do stuff. I think you should talk to Francis about this afterward. I wasn't given a lot of. First Friend is what we're doing. We already have 2 patrons, our friend David, and then a secret person apparently. Well, that's cool. To help the sustainability, I will thank the Canada Council for the Arts. I'll thank the Writers Union of Canada. I'll thank the City of Ottawa. We've had Carleton University, Art Poetry Magazine. We've had, this has been a good week. Thank you for being part of it. And hopefully we can get more workshops happening. I'd love to get some French workshops. If there is interest to have poetry workshops in French, that would be nice to be able to do. And pay attention to our website. All of this stuff, we've been live streaming most of these events, and hopefully we can keep them all on the website for free. We have a YouTube channel. Thank you, Allison. Look at that. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Black Box. Thank you, Saw. Thank you. Oh, Happy Goat. Okay.